So cold, but I'm so hot. Same
Dope
still
boys
I'm up in the trap, I'm dope boy.
with them knives.
Dope boy now. The game so cold, but I'm so hot. Same old shit, still on the block. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. The game so cold, but I'm so hot. Same old shit, still on the block. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Down 8 gram, headed straight to the block. Pirates this border water till it's hot. Listen double up, turn a little to a lot. Right hand on the cell phone, take an order. Left hand 360 motor to a lot. Blue holler tip, gas switches on the dot. State game, Q stickers can't be stopped. Laughing at you haters while I'm thumbing through the paper. Says long live to the bottom, won't you meet me at the top? The nigga ain't shit, yeah, get that a lot. Won't be deterred and I won't be stopped. Shaq Diesel number one, I post up on the block. 24/7 cause the hustle don't stop. 31 flavor, take an order like a waiter. I be selling more gas than a local truck stop. 1200 strong, 4 pounds of the zop. Got me shining, I'm a star. Ask about me, I am legend. They gon' tell you who we are. Fuck these niggas, fuck these bitches. Get money, all I know. No love for these bitches. Never saving these hoes. The game so cold, but I'm so hot. Same old shit, still on the block. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. The game so cold, but I'm so hot. Same old shit, still on the block. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not.
When I'm thinking about the past, yeah, gon' get some nice gang, we at the spot. If we ever was short, then it's back to the block, you probably get shot. Every day's a sudden change, we getting money, that's one thing, it's never gon' stop. Real dope boys do what it takes, playing high stakes, living to die. Do your time, keep it quiet, no matter who you are, don't get what you got. Stack it up, that's the bond to stay fresh. Oh, they think that you're not. Take a roll with a hoe, they gon' let you go. Somebody's gonna say you ain't hot. Just invest in yourself, don't worry about nobody else. There ain't no handout. If you say the same, put it on the chain. Let them see you ain't tied down. Got a couple rings, did a lot of things. I ain't really gon' talk about it. Give me a trade, get you go. She gon' show up and show out. So don't ask me what a dope at, cause you already around.
The game so cold, but I'm so hot. Same old shit, still on the block. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. The game so cold, but I'm so hot. Same old shit, still on the block. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Same young nigga came up in the trap. I'm dope boy fresh with dope boy not. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm late, but it is what it is. Y'all see it. I got a lot of these jets too. Teacher showed racy photos to teen student. We got another Caucasian, y'all. I think tomorrow morning, Tommy went off. I guess he was on Twitter and he was seeing all the white people being upset about Carmelo making bun, and he went clean the fuck off from like 45 seconds that I heard. He was saying something that we're going to listen to it in the morning. He went the fuck off though.
Young nude photos of her and another teacher. Was it malicious or a terrible accident? Either way, this educator seems like she is well on her way to learning a painful lesson. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. 25-year-old Kirsten Raines is out on bond right now after she was arrested for allegedly showing nude photos of herself and a man to a student at Allen County Scottsville High School in Scottsville, Kentucky. This tiny town, fewer than 5,000 people, likely a buzz right now with the news that one of their teachers was arrested. But it's interesting, this case, not as simple, maybe not as straightforward as it may seem. So to talk about this, I want to bring on former criminal prosecutor Dan Shore, who actually now heads up a firm that specializes in sexual misconduct investigations at schools. And you've got a book coming out, Dan, about this very topic, right?
Yeah, my second novel is coming out in August. It's called Open Bar. People can learn more if they search on Substack. I have a weekly newsletter talking about these types of issues and fiction writing.
So what question better to ask you to start this off than why are we seeing more and more and more teachers, especially female teachers, either being called out or arrested or accused of inappropriate interactions with students, whether that's actual sexual contact or messaging or grooming or allegedly displaying obscene material? What is going on here? Is there something that's happening where we're seeing a prevalence of these kinds of cases, or is it better reporting, more technology? I mean, things like that. Talk to us about it.
I think it's more the latter. I became a sex crimes prosecutor 25 years ago, and I've been seeing these cases for a long time. Just they didn't get the type of publicity they're getting now. I think that's for a number of reasons. One is that once it is known that someone's accused of something like this, we see with media and social media, the information spreads more. We also live in a time now where people are more emboldened to talk about and report being a part of any type of sexual misconduct incident. I think a couple of decades ago, there's a lot more shame for the victim to talk about it publicly. Now, because of the Me Too movement and other societal evolutions, more and more people, when they experience something like this or their families, are willing to come forward about it. So I think those are reasons. I don't think it's happening more often, but it's certainly being reported more, and people are hearing about it more often now.
Hey, I just want to take a minute to really thank our sponsor, FinanceBuzz.com, for helping make this episode happen. Now, here's the truth. FinanceBuzz is great. It is your expert source for smarter financial a month or more for you more and more every year. Zip code, date of birth, email anybody on the phone. So I said it before, I'll say it again. And pinned in the comments or scan the QR code on screen to see how much you could save. I said it before, I'll say it again. I find this case to be a little different. I find it a little different. I wonder if there could be a valid defense here because I want to lay it out here. So Raines from nearby Franklin, Kentucky, this is near the Tennessee border, was arrested by the Allen County Sheriff's Department on April 1st. And I want to read you from the citation report that was filed with the court. And it reads, while conducting an investigation at the Allen County High School involving Kirsten and another staff member, I was informed of Raines showing a student nude pictures. I then talked to this student, and they advised that Raines had shown her text messages between Raines and a male teacher. In these messages were pictures of the male teacher's erect penis.
Truth, question about your content tomorrow, because I know you got content. I'm going to ask, well, she'll hear it back. I wonder, because I've been hearing the hoopla about the white boy dad that went to the press conference and they asked him to leave, even though he wasn't making a scene and nothing.
You talking to me?
Yeah, I said, are you going to cover the white boy dad
and I just
getting put out the press conference?
Oh, I walked out. I just walked back in and start over so I can answer you. Am I going to do what now?
Tomorrow, are you planning to cover Austin dad that got put out of Carmelo press conference?
He did.
And he wasn't making no fuss or nothing. He wasn't making a scene.
He shouldn't have been there.
You covering it?
I am.
Why not?
He shouldn't have been there. First of all, he walked up in there like he was.
If he
Listen, I'm not. Listen, he shouldn't have been there. And then he walked up in there with his shades on, standing up there. He stands in the front of the room, right there where the podium is, like somebody was supposed to be scared of his ass. He wasn't supposed to be there. Trey, listen, there's an order for those people not to contact the Metcalf. So why would he be at their press conference if there's a no contact order in place? Why?
Depends on who the order is for, but if he's probably because he wanted to hear what they had to say, but if he was there making a scene, I get it. But him just being there, now they're supposed to be the white people. I seen Bunny
he
share.
made a scene being there. Trey. Why would he want to be there? Why would he want to be there? Why?
Okay. I'm glad you said that. Now that we know the white, because I know you saw Bunny Commune post, the white people are planning on protesting this weekend. Shouldn't one black person show up? Why would y'all be there?
You talking about something that ain't even took place yet. We're talking about what took place today.
Yeah, but I ain't got it. I already know what's going to happen Sunday or Saturday, whenever that damn rally.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. Black people are going to show up and protest. I can
See,
get how much you want to bet.
me and you are not gonna get along with this straight because you sound like these content creators that I've been listening to that's just assholes and they full of shit and they talking like they ain't even black, you know, because they talking like those black
I'm
people
an
or the black
asshole
people, this and
because
the third.
true, true, true.
Wet.
All I
Wet.
said was if it's a problem for him being at the press conference, because you said it was a problem, his presence being there, why should he be there? I'm saying it shouldn't be no niggas counter protesting what's going on Saturday. They ain't
And
got
I'm
no right to be
saying,
there. They ain't got no reason to
and
be
I'm
there if that's what we're
saying,
going with.
and I'm saying I'm not finna sit here and discuss something with you that has not happened yet. It has not happened. We're talking about what he did. Trey, let me tell
No,
you something. When all them, okay, let's just talk about it like this. Him and his ex-wife or whoever, baby mama or whoever, they done had at least 3 or 4 interviews or whatever a piece. Them people ain't tried to show up. Them people weren't there. Why would you want to be there? And if the tables were turned and they were having a press conference and Mr. Anthony showed up, it'd be a problem. It'll be a problem. They'll probably lynch him.
I, the only way I see it being a problem, the only way I see it being a problem is if it's out of order.
Trey, I'm not
I'm
finna.
saying
What
if he
you
was
feel the way you
causing a
feel.
disturbance,
You feel the way
I
you
can
feel. I
get it.
feel the way I feel. He shouldn't have been there, and I'm glad they put his ass out. Sorry, sorry.
Let's put money on that it be black folk out there counter protesting this weekend. Let's put some money on it. What you want to bet? $1?
I ain't putting no money on
That's
that
gonna
because
be
it's
part of our
prone to
content.
happen. I'm
That's
just
gonna
saying
be
I'm
in
not
the
finna
news
see
cycle.
I'm not putting money on it because it's prone to happen because these people are going crazy these days. But I'm not finna sit up here and act like it might not happen. But I'm just not finna discuss something that hadn't happened. When it happened, we can talk about it. And that press conference and
We
that
just
protest
need to
are
go on
two
saying
different.
that black folks shouldn't be there.
Well, you go on, you tell the black folks not
I'm
to be
just
there
saying.
then, Trey. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I won't be there.
Me neither. I won't be there neither. I'm just saying people getting put out for showing up and stuff, it got to be round the
That
board.
man,
Am I
Trey, there's
tripping?
no way on
Because I
this
see the
planet that you
little
believe.
thing
I
popping
don't
up.
know if you just saying that shit to get a rise out of me, but you know damn well that man ain't had no business being standing there in front of them people like that when they was putting that press conference on. Why was he there? He could have been
True,
watching the shit live like
true.
everybody else. He did not have to be there.
His son,
It
he's
was
okay.
disrespectful.
He's there for one because his son died. How's it disrespectful? Carmelo is still alive. He wanted to hear what they had to say in person. His son is
Why?
still dead. I can see if he went in there cussing motherfuckers out and shit. He just went there to see the same reason anybody else was at the press conference.
He knew his presence there
Nobody
was
else at
gonna
the
be
press
a
conference had a
problem.
vested
He knew
interest.
that. He knew that. That's the problem I'm not racist. I'm not none of that. But that's the problem with some white people. They think they can do whatever the fuck they want. They think they can do whatever the fuck they want.
It was a public press conference.
It don't matter,
I can see if
Trey.
it was an
It don't
invite only
matter.
press conference. It was a public press conference.
Did you watch when he
I,
came in and how he came in that place? Did you see it?
I have not seen it at
I
all.
knew it. I know it. I
No, I have
knew
not.
it. I knew it. The motherfucker
Okay,
came in there.
okay. Tell
The
me,
motherfucker walked up in there.
did
It
he
was
make any
people.
noise?
He stood in
Did
front.
he make
He
any
stood in
noise?
front. Damn near at the podium, standing there with his
True.
shades on and his arm, whatever it was, it's giving this stance like, yeah, motherfuckers, I'm here. That's what it came across as to me.
Did he make? Did, did, did he say anything though?
No, he didn't. He didn't have to. He didn't have to. He didn't have to.
people
You
wear
had your
sunglasses
motherfucking interviews.
inside
You done been
all
on
the
the
time,
road.
so now
You
you
and your
can't
wife
have
done been on the tour.
sunglasses on.
Y'all done been on the tour. Y'all was able to have y'all interviews and shit in peace. Them people didn't bother y'all. Let them people put their press conference on and you stay your ass away. If you wanted to hear what had to be said, what was said, watch it on live like everybody else. That motherfucker knew what he was doing. That's the problem. That's why his son did what he did and thought he can throw Carmelo from under that tent. That's the attitude that they have. I said it.
Daddy didn't do
They think they can
anything
do the
wrong
fuck they
though.
want.
His
They think
son
they can boss
did
people
something
around,
wrong.
and we just gotta eat it and live with it. Fuck that. He
His
shouldn't have been
son
there. I
did
said
wrong.
what I
That's why
said.
he's dead. But his dad. Well, by that logic, they could say Carmelo shouldn't have been under the tent, though. That's what I'm saying. If dude can't be at a press conference when his son is dead, why are we arguing? Or why is it an issue when people say Carmelo shouldn't have been under the tent? I'm not one of those people that are saying that. But if we're saying now where people can't be, come on now.
Trey, you can't tell me. Them people, listen, let me tell you something. Them people, listen, the Metcalfs are grieving a loss. They'll never see their son again. In a sense, maybe, possibly, the Anthonys are too. Not in the sense that Carmelo is gone, but Carmelo might be going to prison for life or whatever. So this is the thing, Trey. With everything, see, like, you speaking about this like it's a something normal. Like this shit ain't done blow. This shit has blown up. This shit has become racial. It's become the fact that them people had to put that press conference on, the fact that they had to do it is enough for me to say that man shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have been there, Trey. Like I said, they were able to have their interviews. They did all they talking. They did whatever and said whatever they wanted to do, how they wanted to do it. Them folks ain't said shit to them. They ain't showed up for nothing. They ain't did none of that. I feel as though I feel like him showing up was disrespectful. And I'm not going to change my mind. It was disrespectful. Period.
And that's how some people feel about Carmelo showing up under the tent, is all I'm saying.
It's not the same,
Some people
Trey.
feel that way.
I don't care what some people
How
feel. I
come
don't
it's not?
care. It's not
How
the
come it's
same.
not the same?
It's
It's
not the
both places
same.
where you saying
It's
people
not
shouldn't be.
the same. It's not the same, Trey. It's not. It's not the
I
same.
think if anybody else is entitled to be at the press conference and face the person that murdered their son, it's the parents of the other people. If anybody else is entitled to be there, them. This is the first time to hear what they have to say publicly about what happened. Now you saying the other people went on interviews and stuff where you can't pull up on an interview, but a press conference is open to the public.
I'm glad.
Like I said, if he came in there protesting with shirts and all that stuff on, I get it. Get him up out of there. But he didn't even say shit.
He didn't have to. Him being there was disrespectful. I stand on that, and I'm glad they threw his ass out. Let him know. You listen. You doing too much. Like you doing too much. They've been doing too much ever since the shit happened, and I feel so sorry for those people. I do. I feel so sorry that they lost their son. I know how I feel, but there's a way. Even in loss, there's a way to conduct yourself. This shit has gotten out of hand. This shit has gotten out of hand, Trey. It has become too much. And then for me today, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to go live on this tomorrow because I ain't gonna be right. Because I found out today there's a
You
trial
got
going
to.
on today. There's a trial going on with the same type of circumstances where it's clearly I don't want to talk about this no more. I don't want to talk about it.
Y'all get ready for tomorrow. Get ready for
I'm
tomorrow.
not. I'm not. I might take a break. I don't know.
You got to do the content,
And
truth.
see,
You got to
because if
do the
what you said,
content.
if what you just said piss me off like well, it didn't piss me off, but round me up like that, I probably ain't gonna be. I ain't gonna be able to do it. Erica, he kinda listen,
Proof that
listen.
that's part of the slogan America Speaks.
He had no reason to be there, Trey. If he wanted to hear what those people had to say, he could have been watching them people on live just like us. And I need you. See, before you even continue to argue about this with me, I need you to go. And I got plenty of clips if you need it. I need you to pay attention to how he walked up in that place. He walked up in that place. He had this whole
Proof,
stance about himself, this
proof.
whole thing about himself. Like, you know what I'm
I'm
saying?
not.
Like, I'm here. Well,
That didn't disrupt the meeting though. If he was disrupting the press conference, I feel you, but it's almost you saying this man ain't got the right to be where everybody is. And I'm gonna keep
I did not
reiterating out of
say.
all
I
them
never
people that was
said.
in the press
I
conference,
never.
he's
I
the
never
only one whose
said.
child is dead.
I never said
He
he
said he
didn't
should
have
have
the
watched it
right.
on TV like everybody else.
Will you let me finish? I never said he didn't have the right. Just like Carmelo had the right to build on that tent. I never said he didn't have the right. I said with everything that's going on with this case and with those families and this and that, I said it was disrespectful to do. Of course he could have been there. Of course, but why would he want to be? Why? Why?
To
I didn't want.
hear what
Why would you
the
want to be
man
there?
who's accused of killing his son has to.
That
Everybody's
boy
different,
wasn't
Truth.
there. He wasn't there. He was not there. You don't even know that.
He's
Carmelo wasn't there.
he, he still wanted to be at the press conference. You that like you saying why? I'm not that man, but I know he got a right to be there.
I never
It
said
don't
he didn't
matter
have a right
why he
to.
went. He didn't go to cause no damn trouble.
We don't
He
know that
didn't go
because
to
they didn't
cause
give him
no
a chance.
trouble. When he
We
got
don't know
there, he
whether
didn't make
we
no
don't know what
uproars.
he
He
was
didn't
gonna
push
say.
nobody.
We don't
When
know
they
what
put
he
him
was
out,
gonna say. We don't know what he was gonna do. You wanna know why? Because they out and they should have.
he
He need to be
didn't
at
do it.
home.
If he wanted to say something, he would have said it on his way walking. Like, we're not gonna act like we ain't seen people disrupt a meeting that want to disrupt it. You just get loud and start talking. That's how you disrupt it. No matter what color you are, if you want to disrupt the meeting, you just start talking. You get loud. But you definitely got to play the clips because it'll be my first time watching it. I look at it. Okay, question: when they asked him to leave, did he put up a fuss? Did he cuss, holler, or anything like that? Did they have to drag him out, or did he walk peacefully?
So they escorted him out. He didn't make a scene that I saw. No.
I know the optics of it makes it look racial. It looks racial, and racial tensions
Oh
are
my God.
already high. It looks like
Oh
a
my
room full
God.
of black people put out the white man whose son killed. Those are optics. You can
A room.
overguys
Wait a
all you
minute.
want to, but that's the
Wait a minute.
optics.
Hold
It
on.
looks
Hold on.
racial.
It be the ignorance. So you say what now? It was a room full of black people that put out the white man whose son was killed. That wasn't it. That
Well,
room was not full of black
well, the
people. That room was
organization.
full of
Okay,
whites, from
okay.
what I
Well, let
saw,
me correct
mostly.
myself.
But there was reporters.
Let me correct
It was
myself. The
reporters.
let me Okay, again, let me correct myself. The organization that threw the press conference is a black group. It's a black foundation. It's a black whatever it is. They're the ones that made the decision to put them out. It's like if the NAACP threw the press conference, white guy shows up, you put him out, it still looks racial.
Trey, that room was full of white men. I'm sorry. You gotta watch. You gotta stop. I'm not gonna argue with you because you don't know. Like you gotta watch this shit before we have a conversation. Cause see, you sitting up there making it seem like this room was full of black people and he was the only white in there and they threw him out. No, it was not. That was not
Again,
the
I
atmosphere.
changed it and said the I changed it and said the organization that threw it. The people that was it. The white people didn't say put them out. The reporters didn't say get them up out of here. You playing semantics right now. You know the people in
I'm not
charge,
playing no
the black
semantics.
people
I'm
told him to
correcting
get up
you.
out of there.
I'm correcting you on the shit that you don't know because you ain't watched, and you want to argue with me who watched.
You had already corrected me. I said, let me change it. The organization that threw the press conference or held it to put it together, they put him out. And you still came back with the room full of reporters. It's fine, cool. But the people, it just looks racial. If all of this got racial connotation, which I hate anyway, because I don't think we would be hearing about this if it was white on white or black on black. Both high school students, same situation. It's only getting attention because it was black on white, and I hate that. What are you saying, Erica? The dad wanted an uproar from the black people on camera. Truth, do you understand what I'm saying?
I already did. I understand. He wanted something. He wanted something for the mere
I
fact that
don't.
he was there.
I will grant he wanted some attention, but also it was a
Exactly.
chance to, as I said, hear what was going on. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's a case that's going on. He wants justice for his son, just like Carmelo's people want justice for him.
That press
Both
conference ain't got
sides
nothing
are
to do.
seeking justice,
That press
whatever
conference
that
ain't
may
had
look
shit to
like.
do with justice for his son. That press conference ain't gonna give him no justice for his
Well,
son.
I'm talking about
And
the
them,
attention.
and
I'm
this is
talking
the
about
thing.
the attention part. The attention part. I said I give it to him. He went there for attention because the media would be talking about it. Unfortunately, he got put out, and that's what they're talking about more than just him being there in the first place. Now he's talking about him getting put out, and they're trying to make that racially motivated, which I hate. It's fucked up optics. But yeah, as pointed out the other day, him and his wife, they own a cash grab. That's I don't want to call it disgusting. I can't think of the word right now, but they're on a
It's
cash
pretty much
grab like a lot of people do around
it's
this
just weird
time.
to me. It's weird to me. That's weird. That's weird. That is crazy. But see, I wouldn't even have shit to say about it. I mean, you get it how you live. If you and your ex husband both one got the cat, one got to go fund me for what, you got to go. No, that's your business. But see, the fact that they scrutinizing the monies that these people had to come out and explain. Y'all need to stop telling these lies. The fact that they even concerned about or worried about the support that those people are getting as far as money. Why are you concerned? Why are you worried? That's not your business. That's not nobody business. Whoever supports it. But others who out here trying to make it seem like these people got doing a money grab or whatever, told all kind of lies that them people had to come out here and address because motherfuckers want to be ignorant and stupid and dumb, spread lies. You got motherfuckers believing the lies. They regular sitting up here saying that the people were spending the money getting a house and cars and shit, but you're looking at the damn total on the account never changing, never moving. How ignorant can you be? Like, and to be honest, I was a
But
little like, why are y'all coming out here addressing these lies? Because this is the thing. For one, the lies are not gonna stop. They're just gonna make up
that's
more
what I was
lies.
about to
And for
say.
number two, for number two, you coming out here and proving that the shit is a lie. It still ain't gonna, motherfucker. I know from being in this little realm that we in over here. Motherfuckers don't give a fuck about the truth. They don't care. The lies is more entertaining. The lies is more drama filled. They want the lies. Don't now motherfucker want the truth. They can spread lies
Man,
all day motherfucking every day. You can come out here and put out receipt after motherfucking receipt and the stupid bitch is still gonna run with the lie. I learned damn near 2 years
here,
ago, let it go. Let a motherfucker lie and keep it pushing. Cause I'm telling you,
here's what's
dummy,
crazy.
stupid bitches, they don't want the truth. They want to continue to run with the lies. Period. People still gonna
It's not
say, people
mainstream
still gonna say
media saying
they
shit
still
like
gonna
that though.
say that they took that money and bought a house and a car. They not say they still gonna say it. They still gonna say it
It's not
because if they wasn't
mainstream
still
media.
gonna be saying it, they wouldn't have said it in the first place when you can clearly go over there and see that the money had not been touched.
Here's the problem I have with them releasing a statement on it. They're not listening to CNN and Fox News and their local news stations saying this. They watching social media, they watching Twitter and all that other shit.
Trey,
And
it
y'all
was in the
son's
New
life is
York
hanging in the
Post.
balance. Why the fuck
It
y'all
was
on
in
social
the
media?
New York Post. Don't
What the
tell
New
me
York
social
Post say?
media. Don't tell me just social media are spreading these lies. That's not true. You got Nancy Grace, wide helmet head looking ass over that line. You got all these people. It ain't just social media. The article that I read with the lies and a picture of the house, I mind you, was the New York Post. Okay,
Either way, they
case closed.
son life is on the line. Why the fuck are they worried about social media
I agree.
or the media or the news? Like
I
it's
agree.
real life shit going on. Fuck what these people talking about.
I agree. I never would have done it.
That
I
was
never would have
they
done it.
should
I wouldn't
never
have done
had
it.
to come. Yeah, the white folks ain't finna come out and explain why they doing what the fuck they doing. That girl that it was a rapper in Texas that died, and his little girl died too, and the mama got a whole bunch of money from donations, and she was online stunting and cussing people out, and people were upset. And I was like, y'all can't tell that woman how to grieve. That's giving her a little bit of pleasure in the fucked up time that she got knowing her baby daddy and her child is gone. People are upset at her. But that's just what people do. You can't stop the scrutiny. You got to. I don't know, especially like something like this. Like this, I'm worried about my son's defense. Fuck what y'all talking about. So what? I bought a house, even though I didn't do it. What the fuck y'all want me to do? Move into a shack? What am I supposed? What the fuck am I supposed to
And
do?
then they act like them
Downgrade?
people. They act like them people living in it differently just because they move locations. They act like they living in it differently than what they was already living that way. They was already living that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we talking about here? People mad because people supported them monetarily. What the fuck you mad for? Why is it even your business? And then they get mad when you
And
bring up the fact that them other killers out there raised millions and millions of dollars. Ain't nobody said shit about that. In fact, they donated what they, you know what, but they want to scrutinize this family who ain't touched the money. As of today, the money had not been touched. The woman said that they contacted her yesterday and just told her yesterday that she was able to
boom.
withdraw money off the funds.
Yeah, it's like a 30-day waiting period or some shit like
I
that
wouldn't have
anyway. They
gave a
may have
fuck
cut
what
it
they were
down, but it's
saying. I
still a
wouldn't have
waiting
gave a
period once you
fuck. I
cash
wouldn't,
out.
but that's just me. I don't ever feel the need. I wouldn't have gave a fuck. I wouldn't have gave not two fucks. Y'all keep talking, but see, I think I'm gonna be honest though. I think the real main reason why they came out and spoke is because of the threats. They're not gonna stop. These people don't give a fuck. They're not gonna stop. They're not. They're not.
Hell no. Moms,
They're just not.
this jewelry is going to be for white people, for black people, a Hispanic, a Asian, and they might try to get a I don't know, but it's gonna be pretty much even on black and white. Any damn like they have to decide on a jury jointly, the prosecutor and the witch McCall. So they're not just gonna get a whole bunch of white people on there that think he guilty. This ain't the 60s or whatever year it was. It just yeah. Notice that this is the most I've talked about this damn case. It's the most I've talked about it. This particular instance of Pops being thrown out. Because when I heard he wasn't belligerent, I'm like, well, why? Because I'm staying away from the rest of this shit because it's too racial. But like I said, I am playing Tommy in the morning. He went off on white people because they mad that this man got bond. And everybody's supposed to be able to have a right to a bond. You might not get it, but this is a fundamental right as an American to have a chance to get a bond, and they upset. Hell, the
Yeah,
mass shooter is
all
gonna
these other,
probably be able to get a bond.
all these other shooters, around here that get bonds, and get GoFundmes and stuff. They deserve it, but not Carmelo. And then let's see how they gonna talk about this one that they shot up at Florida State. Let's see what's gonna be said about that. And
His
his mom
dad
is
was
a
a
host every
deputy.
chat. What?
Yep. Was it mama? Or dad? Was it mama or dad? I know it
It's
was
the
a parent.
mama. Mama. She look like a dude, but it's the mama.
If he get a bun, that motherfucker gonna be extremely high.
Hmm. And he used her gun
Bun,
to do it.
if he get one
He
just
used her gun,
because of
an
all the,
official gun. He used her gun to do it.
she need to be charged then.
Hmm.
She needs to be charged. How he had access to your service revolver? You supposed to have that motherfucker tucked away. All right, let's get back to this. Damn, I forgot we were on the nasty teacher who showed racist photos to the teen student. They just keep popping up.
Penis and Rain's breasts. I contacted Rain and she came to the sheriff's office to talk with me. I read Rain's Miranda warning and she still wished to proceed with talking to me. Through the discussion, Rains advised that pictures had been sent between her and the male teacher of each other's nude private areas. Rains did state that the student could have seen these pictures on her laptop that is synced to her phone while at school. She stated that she does leave her laptop open and students have the opportunity to look at her computer and may have seen messages that were between her and this male teacher. Rains also stated that students get access to her phone when selecting what music to listen to in class, and they may have accessed these pictures while on her phone, and that these photos were synced to her personal laptop at school. She acknowledged that students may be able to easily access these images. But again, it seems to be that she's saying she didn't intentionally do this. Now, according to a Facebook post welcoming her to Allen County Scottsville High School from the summer of 2024, Rains was an English teacher. And there is a lot to break down here with this. So Rains was charged with one count of distribution of obscene matter to minors. Because it's her first offense, it is a Class A misdemeanor. And according to Kentucky's criminal code, a person is guilty of distribution of obscene material to minors when knowing a person to be a minor or having possession of such facts that he should reasonably know that such person is a minor. And with knowledge of the content and character of the material, he knowingly sends or causes to be sent or exhibits or distributes or offers to distribute obscene material to a minor. Now, Dan, I think we can both agree this is obscene material if this is in fact what it is, but I don't know if she's guilty of this. What do you think?
Right. There's a lot to break down here, as you said. First of all, she's 25 years old. I do a lot of investigations. A lot of them are with colleges, universities, and grad students. The real world that we live in is it's very, very common for people of that age to be sharing naked photos with people they're dating when they're single. That's just the reality of the world we live in right now. So there's a huge difference between her having that on her phone, which a lot of people her age do, and someone accidentally seeing it in school. And there's a big difference between that and her intentionally showing it to a student who is in her school and she's an authority figure as a teacher. So that's a huge point that needs to be investigated. And obviously she's being intentional. If action, she needs to be more careful, but I don't think to an arrest here. The arrest is really allegedly and
a student, right? And what does that tell you?
Right, because the teacher is saying that it was an accident, that somehow the student was accessing it. She talked about ways that could have happened. Either it was on an open laptop or it was on her phone that students were allowed to access to play music in the classroom. If it had happened accidentally, it's still a major problem. She should be disciplined by her school, but I don't see an arrest coming out of that if it's not intentional. So how do you determine whether it's intentional? The word of the student or other students who are aware of it is crucial there to see what they are saying, how they were reportedly given these photos, other information, and then you have to judge the credibility of the people or the person saying that it was intentionally shown to them. So that's a tough thing to show. And were there other witnesses? We don't know yet. That's important also.
I guess I'm so, I'm jaded in a way because I've been covering so many cases where there have been allegations of intentionally sending explicit messages to students, actually messaging them on social media platforms or either through text messages. This one feels a little bit different. Now, according to the sentencing guidelines in Kentucky, this is a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by 90 days to 12 months in jail, a fine of up to $500. Before we move on, do you think that she would actually get jail time for this?
If it was intentional, I could see jail time resulting. If that was proven beyond a reasonable doubt that a teacher took a student who's underage and showed them explicit photos of male genitalia in school, that would definitely be something that I could see jail time resulting from. But as I said before, if this was an accidental disclosure through either an open laptop or access to a phone for selecting music in a classroom, that's irresponsible. But I don't think that would merit an arrest and a prosecution, and certainly not jail time.
I want your opinion on this. So according to reporting from WBKO, Allen County Schools Superintendent Travis Hamby said that Raines will be placed on leave pending further investigation and released a statement. We are aware of a situation involving an employee of Allen County Schools. The district takes such matters seriously and is currently gathering information. While the individual has not yet been available for comment, the employee will be placed on leave pending further investigation in accordance with district policies. Because this is a personal matter, be held civilly liable in any way here?
They could, and there's a couple of reasons why. One is if they knew about this and didn't act on it. That happens in a lot of cases that I investigate. So I don't know the particular circumstances here. That hasn't been made public. But if somehow a school is aware of it, if they knew that the teacher had this on a computer or on a phone, if other authority figures were aware that nothing was done to stop that, or if a student reported that nothing was done, there could be civil liability. If it was a case of accidental viewing by a student when the teacher had it, liability, but I think there's much less exposure for the school potential threat to students see this type of material.
Assuming for a moment that this is the worst case scenario, that she intentionally showed a student or students this material, and in light of what we talked about before, a lot of these cases coming up, is there a problem in the hiring practices? Is there a problem in background checks? Or you can do the most thorough background check, right? They can check every, they dot every I, cross every T, but it's impossible to predict what people are going to be up to even when they're in these positions.
Well, that's a great point. And a lot of the answer depends on what they would have found in a background check that was thorough. Maybe they did one, maybe they didn't. But if she had, let's say, hypothetically, some prior public this information, either an arrest or litigation or something like that, that showed that this was something that happened in the past, then certainly that would be a failure on the part of the school to then put that person in the classroom. Most likely, based on the public information, that doesn't exist. If someone has not been arrested, they've never been sued, if there's nothing on in the media or social media about this type of behavior, the most thorough background check is not going to find out about this potential incident.
And there's no psychological evaluations that should be conducted before, because you're talking about not somebody working in an accounting office, you're talking about somebody working with children.
Right. So the way that these background checks are done, and I've been a part of some of these background checks, you're going to interview maybe former employers, maybe people who were their teachers or administrators in schools. You're going to look for references. You're going to interview the teacher, hopefully more than once, to get a sense of them. Maybe you're going to have them do a sample lesson, and you're going to judge how they are in class. And you're going to then make a determination about whether that person seems appropriate to be in your school. But if it's someone who's very young, in their 20s, and they have photos and they're single and they have naked photos on their phone, there's no way someone who's hiring them would be able to know that they had the potential to share it if that hadn't been done in a way that was publicly known before. So a lot of times there's no way to know everything that someone's going to do once they're on the job.
By the way, would the male teacher, assuming all this is true, would the male teacher have any sort of claim against Raines? Because I imagine he didn't give any kind of consent for these photos to be shared, especially with a student. Talk to me about that.
Well, first of all, certainly if it's intentional, absolutely. If someone is sharing, as often happens, naked photos with someone just for that person's own viewing and use, and that person shares it with someone else, and especially it's a student, that undermines that person's workplace environment. Imagine you're a teacher who shared it with someone else who you thought was an adult, who you thought was single, and there was some kind of interaction between the two of you, but all of a sudden now everyone in the school knows that it was shared with a student. Absolutely, that would be an issue for that male teacher. But if it was an accidental disclosure, I think certainly it would be upsetting for that male teacher, but I think there's much less of a cause of action if it was an accidental disclosure. So intent continues to be the really important factor here.
By the way, I just want to go back to this idea of if it was her personal cell phone or laptop, what is her responsibility? I mean, if it's not company issued and it is her own personal device, are we responsible if by accident we leave something open or somebody has access to it? Does that seem fair? I mean, look, people shouldn't be sending these things. Look, you can't judge. It's not against the law to be sending people, you're in a relationship with or whatever, intimate photos, but should we be policing it if it's, let's say, for example, accidentally left there, either in a criminal context or a disciplinary action? Again, I'm not justifying it, but I'm just trying to understand it a little bit more.
Right. So I see this all the time with people this age. They're sharing intimate photos. This is just
great sound bites earlier too, Truth. We gonna chop it up and make some content out of it at them clips. There's content, so we can tell them to come in the morning and watch us do it all over again. We can watch it, and you can point out how he came in there, gent, walking smooth and shit, and posting up like he wanted to say something. Yeah, good content. Let me hit the drop. That was good content though. Good job. Good job.
Check out the content. This is content. Bruv. We got content.
We got content. That was about like a 15-minute. I think about 15, 20 minutes. We talked.
are always
Because I only played one song.
Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but this is just the world we live in right now. So it's not surprising that a 25-year-old single person had these photos. The question is, what steps did they take to be secure about it, to not have an accidental disclosure? So if you know you have this on your personal device, you shouldn't bring that personal device into school. And if you do bring it into school, you should really make sure that no one else can see it. So if you know you have naked photos on your phone, you shouldn't be giving that phone to students to then select music in the classroom. Or if you know you have it on your laptop, you should not leave your laptop open when you're not there monitoring what's on the laptop. So that's extremely irresponsible. If it happened that way, I think there's significant disciplinary action that's appropriate by a school, but I don't see that leading to an arrest and a prosecution, and certainly not jail time if it was accidental. But people have to be responsible about the content on their phone. Everyone has content on their devices, even if it's not intimate photos, that is not always appropriate for a student to see. And you need to be careful wherever you are. People are always in their lives interacting with children, whether it's their children, other people's children, and you make sure that if you have something on your device, that they don't have access to that device. That's part of being an adult, and that's important.
By the way, there's something else that was odd about this. Why would the officer have been originally investigating this as maybe an apparent relationship of some type between two teachers at the same school before finding out what was going on with the alleged sharing of this material? I mean, that part was interesting, the timeline of it. I'm not entirely sure what prompted the initial investigation.
Right. I noticed that too. From the public information, it's not clear. So what spurred law enforcement to look into that part? Maybe they were when they were notified that there were these photos, that they thought there might be something even more improper than what's been alleged here. And that's why they started digging deeper into it. But we don't know at this point. And a lot of times law enforcement keeps their cards close to the vest at this point. They'll have enough to make an arrest and charging decision, but they won't necessarily reveal everything until later when it's possibly going to trial.
I also mentioned litigation against the potential school in a worst case scenario. Would the parents of a child have a claim against Rains if this is actually true?
Yeah. And again, especially if it was intentional, 100%.
What about negligence?
It was negligence. Yeah. If there was, if someone who's an underage person in a school is given a phone to, as the teacher said, change the music in the classroom, and there's explicit photos on there, including male genitalia, then absolutely, that's something that I could see civil exposure for, that a family could bring litigation about. Because when you send your child to a school, you're not expecting the teacher to hand them that kind of material. That's completely inappropriate, obviously.
By the way, Rains was required to post 10% of a $10,000 bond, so $1,000 according to the jail website. And that seems reasonable, right, considering what she's facing?
Yes, definitely. She's not facing significant incarceration. There's no evidence to show she's a flight risk. So in those situations, usually don't have a high amount of bail or bonds.
Do you think that this case is actually going to proceed forward, or do you think we're looking at possibly, let's say there really is evidence she did do this intentionally, knowingly. Do you think that this would proceed to trial, or do you think that there would be some sort of deal that's worked out?
Most cases in situations like this lead to a plea bargain. And maybe even if it was intentional, maybe there's a lower charge that she will admit to and plead to in return for not having any jail time. That's a common outcome in situations involving this type of incident. But a lot of it depends on how strong the prosecution's case is, how credible they believe the witness will be in front of a jury, the victim, the alleged victim, and also how much the defendant wants to contest this in court, whether they're willing to take a plea bargain and admit some kind of wrongdoing, or they want to push it to trial.
See, I think if she's really taking this this argument, I didn't do this intentionally, to plead guilty to it, that might not be on the table for her. I don't think I've never met her. I don't know. I'm just based on the reporting. I think she would want to fight this and say this was a complete accident. Yes, it was a lapse in judgment, but I didn't intentionally show obscene material to a student. I didn't do that. I think that that's significant here.
Right, but what if there's a plea bargain that says you'll agree that you did something negligently and you agree to go on probation for a couple of years?
Yeah.
There's you everything else that happens in the process and the risk of jail time. I could see that as a likely outcome here if that matches the defendant's goal in terms of avoiding incarceration and being.
I agree with you. I think it's just I don't know her, but I'm just saying I don't think she would admit, even if there was no incarceration, to say I intentionally did this in order, because that is a stain. That is a stain on her career. That's a stain on her reputation. But look, I'm not defending her. Maybe she did really do this intentionally, and that the student's accurate about what happened. If that's the case, forget everything I just said. So we'll see. Her next court date has not been announced yet, but I just thought it was an interesting case. You said it to me before we came on. There's a lot of black and white cases. This may be a little bit more gray. So Dan Shore, thank you so much for breaking it down with me. I appreciate it.
Jesse, it's always great to talk with you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. That's all we have for you right now here on Side. The Catholic, including, by the way, in her office, has just accepted her responsibility in this sordid tale. But what happened and what could her punishment be? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Okay, we have another teacher in the spotlight for having sexual relations with a student. Now this time, we actually have her admitting it and pleading guilty to it.
Did you engage in sexual conduct with a 17-year-old male on those 2 dates? Yes.
So that is 43-year-old Emily Nutley. She's the former director of academic services at the private all-boys Catholic school known as St. Xavier High School out in Cincinnati, Ohio. And she just pled guilty to 2 counts of sexual battery for having sexual conduct with a 17-year-old male. These are third-degree felonies. She faces up to 10 years in prison. This was accepted by the court. And it's interesting, and something that we're going to talk about a little bit later, is she was originally facing 6 charges. So she pled guilty to 2. We'll talk about how that deal might have happened. But in what has become so familiar, listen to this progression as laid out by authorities. So what started out back in 2023 of Nutley beginning to text this teenager after school hours, this would go into 2024, and it involved sending nude photos, sexually explicit messages. That escalated into them engaging in sex acts, and then it escalated once more with the pair ultimately having sex. And at least one of those episodes actually was in her office. Yeah. And it wasn't just criminal charges that Nutley faced. No, she lost her job. This happened after the school did its own private investigation. Apparently, it was that investigation that sparked the criminal investigation. But you're talking about somebody who lost her career. I mean, she claimed in court that she is an 18-year veteran in school counseling. So it appears that's over. And her husband filed for divorce after the charges were announced, after they were filed. This is a mother of 3. Her life is essentially ruined. And so when her sentencing happens, currently scheduled for June 10th, not only could she face prison time, but she's also not allowed within 1,000 feet of a school, and she's going to have to register as a sex offender. So there's a lot of different elements to this. I want to discuss it more. I want to discuss more about the case and also what we can expect from Ms. Nutley's sentencing. So let me bring on special guest, prosecutor, former Deputy Attorney General of Ohio, Mark Weaver. Mark, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you taking the time. So first of all, before I get into your experience with this and these kinds of cases, somebody might be looking at this and saying, wait, I don't understand. Some 17 years old? That's older than the age of consent in Ohio. Why is this a crime? Talk to us about why this is a crime.
Yeah, there are different flavors of sex crimes with children in the criminal statutes of Ohio, and you can only charge based on the age base. Under 16, it's a lot easier to get some of the other cases like gross sexual imposition. Under 18, but over 16, you can get sexual battery, which is what was charged in this case. So every time we prosecute a sexual offense involving children, we have to do an analysis of how old was the child when the sex act happened and how old was the perpetrator, and then that helps you pick the right statute.
And I think here it's because she works at the school and the victim is a student, right? That power dynamic, and I read the law there on it, that's what, and it's not the first state I've seen that. There are certain categories where you have that power dynamic where it is a sexual battery. Why is that the law?
Well, first of all, there are ways to get these convictions if the perpetrator is older than 5 years than the person who's the child, and that person's under 16. That wouldn't apply here because the victim's not under 16. But our legislators have decided that when you're in a position of power, you have a special duty. It sounds crazy. A special duty to not have sex with children. I think, now I'm a prosecutor, I maybe have a different take. I think all adults have a special duty not to have sex with children, but there's an extra super special duty for teachers or people in authorities, or in cases, one of the cases I recently prosecuted, a coach. And these people have great sway over these young victims.
It's interesting you say that because the statute actually says that this would be an offense if the offender is a teacher, administrator, coach, or other person in authority employed by or serving in a school for which the director of education and workforce prescribes minimum standards. If the other person or one of the other persons is enrolled in or attends that school and the offender is not enrolled in and does not attend that school, meaning they're not a fellow student. So talk to us about, you said you've had similar experiences prosecuting similar cases.
Yeah, I've been prosecuting child sex cases since 2001 in a part-time endeavor. I do other legal practice as well, but here in Ohio, there's a part-time prosecutor position, which I've had for all those years. And most recently, and some of your long crime viewers probably have seen coverage of this, I prosecuted an Ohio couple, a man and a wife. She was a cheerleading coach. He was a substitute teacher. He was a wrestling coach and a teacher. And they were conspiring so that he would direct his wrestlers to have sex with his wife. And then she and he would share the details about it afterwards in a very sick fashion. And it happened numerous times over several years with a victim as young as 13. So recently just ended that prosecution. They were convicted. They're now both in prison.
Hey, everybody, this is a law and crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? And the research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to all this? Yeah. Well, Morgan & Morgan is stepping in to fight to hold these food companies accountable. With decades of experience fighting large corporations, they are ready to stand up. Visit www.forthepeople.com. Yeah, that's pretty unbelievable and disgusting, to say the least. But let me go back to the Nutley case for a second. So she was facing 6 charges. She pled guilty to 2. Sounds like a good deal for her, right? But what would be the incentive for the prosecutors to offer for this?
We face this all the time. And I'm not an elected prosecutor. I don't ever want to run for office, but I talk to a lot of elected prosecutors, and they get weary of people attacking them in election time, saying that they're soft on child sex cases, when what we've done typically is talk to the victim and see how zealous or interested they are in actually testifying in open court in front of a bunch of strangers about a sexual act that they participated in. Most of these victims are simply uninterested in doing that. Now, we can subpoena them to make them testify, but that's a bad look and a bad motivation for a witness. So when the victim is willing to forego any trial and not have to testify and get a guaranteed conviction with no appeals, unless there's something wrong in the sentencing process, this woman will not have appeals because she's pled to it. And so when a victim hears that, well, I don't have to testify and talk about these embarrassing details, we'll know for sure that she's guilty and everyone will know I'm correct, and there'll be no appeals, and I got some certainty. That's very attractive to a victim. And so we as prosecutors are willing to dismiss some of the felony counts in return for the defendant pleading guilty to some other felony counts.
And does it also signify to you that Nutley and her defense counsel believe they didn't have a good defense going into this?
Yeah, I've never been a criminal defense lawyer, but I've many friends who are, and I talk to them all the time. Their calculus, even though they have no burden of proof, their calculus is, man, if we get convicted on every one of these counts and the judge decides to max and stack those counts, you will be spending certainly the prime of your adult life in prison, and maybe even well into your senior years. And even for women, sex offenders are poorly treated in prison, and these defendants know that.
And because so much of this seemed to be documented through a phone, right? I mean, how many cases do we see? It's the text messages, it's the sexually explicit messages. And even if there wasn't sexually explicit messages, if you have the phone that would show that you were in contact with this person and you were together and you were planning up a meetup or whatever it might be, I just don't know how you go into this case and say something didn't happen when, according to this statute, it's a very low bar to convict her on this.
Yeah. There's something else that your viewers outside of Ohio probably ought to know. This school, we call it St. X in Ohio, is an elite Catholic boys' school. In Cincinnati, Catholic men often will meet each other, and the very first question they'll ask is, which of the 2 competing high schools did you go to, one of which was St. X. And so this is an elite school that everyone in this area knows, and this woman was the head of the counseling program. So you can imagine the stakes were very high, and the prosecutors wanted to get this right. And one way to get it right is to get a guaranteed conviction.
By the way, why did this happen? Why did this deal work out literally right when the trial was supposed to start? Does that happen? They plead guilty like literally at the 11th hour?
It's a smart question. I know you're a lawyer, and maybe your viewers know you're a lawyer. That's a smart question. Here's probably what happened. This Judge Branch, has a more relaxed policy about pleas. I appeared in many courts, and I prosecuted cases in 12 different counties in Ohio, where the judge will say, there's no pleading just before the jury trial unless you're pleading to the indictment, which means, because the judge can never stop you from pleading to the indictment. But if there's going to be a deal, and I've got a jury panel coming in for voir dire ready to talk, no, you're going to trial. So this judge, they probably felt her out and talked to her a little bit, both sides, of course, the defense and prosecutor, to see if she'd be willing to take a plea that close to trial on reduced charges. I'm here to tell you, and I felt this pain, not every judge will.
So when you say that, that means if she wanted to plead guilty to all 6 charges, I call it a deal, but it's not really a deal in the sense that the prosecutor didn't agree on a prison time or didn't agree on a sentence, right? That's going to be up to the judge. Is that typical? Hey, listen, we'll drop the other 4 charges, right? You'll plead guilty to 2. It's not in our control what the sentence will be. I think it's 1 to 5 years for each charge. Is that typical that the prosecutor either will not or cannot guarantee what the sentence will be?
It is, and we call this a free to argue. Sometimes as part of the deal, there will be a stipulated sentence, but the judge doesn't have to take it. So in Ohio, they also, the local municipal court judges can appoint a litigator to sit on their docket when they're on vacation or on training. So I've done that for me. Sitting, never on cases that I prosecute or even counties where I prosecute, by the way, but when I'm sitting as a judge and there's a deal like this, I will look right at the defendant and I'll say, now, even though you pled guilty, nobody can change the fact that I have the last say on what your sentence will be. And if they say they don't agree with that, then I withdraw their guilty plea and we go right back to a trial because the judge has the final say on the sentence. And the best lawyers can usually get is a backdoor in-chambers agreement from the judge of what the range is or what they're likely to do. But the sentencing is always the province of the court.
What is she looking at a potential sentence here? Is she looking at probation? Is she looking at prison time? How long would this be? And also, if you can, I mean, what are the arguments you're going to hear from both sides?
Yeah, here's what's happening as we speak. The judge has ordered a probation officer to fill out what's called a PSI or a pre-sentence investigation report. And this probation officer will talk to the victim's family, talk to the defendant's family, talk to other people in the community, maybe her former boss, people who worked with her. She's also no doubt amassing letters and character witnesses to appear at the sentencing. At the same time, the victim is being told that he has the ability to give a statement in court or have it read by the prosecutor, or he can mail it to the judge, however you'd like to do it. Each side is preparing a case for, in her case, leniency, probation, or what we call community control in Ohio, or on the prosecution side, some period of time. Now, she gets more appellate rights if the judge maxes her on both counts. So a lot of judges maybe will come in just under the max. So maybe you might see 4 years on each, and then the judge would have to decide whether that's going to run concurrently or consecutively. And the judge has to make a series of findings on the record at the sentencing hearing that the purposes and principles of felony sentencing in Ohio have been met. And what are those purposes and principles? Never been convicted of something before are supposed to get a less serious sentence than somebody who has been convicted before. We have no reason to believe she's been convicted of anything. I've seen nothing in the coverage that she has a previous record. That weighs in her favor. The victim can make a big difference here. If this victim comes in and minimizes what she did and said, listen, I was a willing participant. I'm almost an adult. I'm just as responsible as she is. That could result in a slightly different or lesser sentence for her.
Oh, I was going to ask you that. If the victim, and I have no reason to believe that the victim in this case would do it, but just for argument's sake, if the victim comes forward and releases a statement, says, I want this read at court, and it minimizes what she did, defends what she did, again, just for argument's sake, does the prosecution have an obligation to present that nonetheless?
Oh, yeah. So we have a state constitutional amendment. It's in our constitution that a victim has an absolute right to be heard in court. Now, when I have my victim going in, I will work, it's almost always a female, but in some cases a male, but I'll work with her to help her shape her statement as long as it's her own voice. I'll usually say, write down what you want to say, and then let's talk about it. And then I might make some suggestions, but it's completely up to that victim what they want to say. And nobody, not even the judge, can stop it. I defy a judge in Ohio to shut down a victim in the middle of a victim's statement because it's a constitutional right. That judge will be overturned and potentially disciplined for violating the Constitution if they were to shut down what a victim wants to say.
And again, not to suggest that this teen would do this, but because Fox 19 reports that at one point, this teen tried to stop the relationship. Nutley wouldn't have it, kept on texting him. So, nothing to indicate that you would say a sense of sympathy on the part of the victim if they release a statement for the court. But generally speaking, I mean, what do you think her sentence is going to be for something like this?
Well, this judge is known as a little more liberal on sentencing than some other judges on the bench. I'd like to think she'd send this woman to prison. In the case I told you about where the wrestling coach and the cheerleading coach were conspiring to have children have sex with the wife, in my sentencing memo, I filed a 12-page sentencing memo in that case. One page was devoted to all the popular movies, TV shows, and songs about young boys in their teens having sex with a teacher. There's a rock and roll song called Hot for Teacher. There's been movies dedicated to this. There's been TV shows. I actually listed them. It'd be more interesting reading than most sentencing memos are because I, summarize the plot and the year and the stars and that sort of thing in it. But I was trying to make the point that the culture in some way glamorizes teenage boys having sex with adult women. And that's just wrong. It is every bit a crime as when a female adult has sex with a teen boy as the reverse. And it needs to be treated that way. I hope this judge will treat it this way. This person needs to go to prison. She needs to be a tier 3 lifetime registration sex offender. She'll never teach again or be a guidance counselor again. That's easy. Her certificate will be revoked by the Department of Education. But we need to send a message to teachers that don't even think about this. Stay well away from sexual conversations of any sort with a child. No teacher or counselor should be speaking about sex to a child unless the parents are involved in that conversation.
And having sex with the child, nonetheless.
Well, of course, but that's true. Every adult.
What is a tier 3 sex offender?
So we have 1, 2, 3. 1 is the lowest level with a much shorter period, I think a 15-year. 2 is 25-year. Tier 3 is life registration. Tier 1 does not require your neighbors to be notified that you're living near them. Tier 3 does require for the rest of your life your neighbors to be notified. There's more frequent reporting times for tier 3s. It's the most serious. It's what I've asked for. One of my early child rape cases 20 years ago was a father who raped his 2.5-year-old daughter. That's the sort of thing I asked for in even those most serious cases.
Oh, that's horrifying, to say the least. When you look at this, when you look at her position, you talked about a little bit, all boys school, her job was to help the kids that were struggling. In fact, Hamilton County Prosecutor Melissa Powers had said this child was in need of help and guidance, but instead found an adult looking to act out her perverted sexual desires. That is an aggravating factor, right? And I feel like that places her in a very unique position of abuse, to abuse, I should say.
It does. Remember, a counselor, particularly in an elite school that is funneling these kids to what some people call the elite universities of the country. We can certainly argue about what's elite or not, but these kids are on an upward path to success. If for no other reason, this fraternity I've told you about, kind of an old boys network amongst the alumni. That counselor has the ability to make sure you get better recommendations. That's a significant amount of power, maybe even more than a teacher, because your math teacher can only give you 1 grade in 1 class. But your guidance counselor has a much bigger effect. It seemed from the facts as reported that this guidance counselor was having her own needs served, and in some way was felt vindicated or validated by having sex with a young man. I don't know what's going on in her personal life. This divorce probably reflects that. It could also reflect a husband trying to step away from her ahead of any civil lawsuit that may come and to sever the liability chain. Not quite sure which, if it was or both, but she has tremendous power in his life, tremendous influence in her life. We want our counselors to help our kids get through this rough patch of high school. I remember being very appreciative of my daughter when she was in high school, and her counselor was so kind to her and wrote her such a nice recommendation and encouraged her that I reached out to that counselor afterward and told her how appreciative I was as a parent that a counselor would play such a big role in my daughter's life. That's what we expect from counselors. This woman failed well short.
Mark, you mentioned a little bit, you've covered these kinds of cases. What drives somebody to do this? Obviously, it's impossible to get into somebody's head, but in the cases that you've seen, the cases you've covered, the cases you've prosecuted, do you see an underlying theme, or what are some of the reasons people do this?
Yeah, I wasn't prosecuting in the 80s or 90s. I wasn't even a lawyer, until the 90s. But there's no doubt that the internet and social media and the availability of sexual content online is a driver of nearly every one of these cases. I have not had a sex case in the last several years that did not involve either cell phones or naked photos or social media or porn. When I prosecute child porn cases, I'm finding there was child rape in the 1900s. Of course there was. There's been this sort of sin and crime since humanity started. There just wasn't the access to the sort of image that make this seem sexually attractive. If you read any story about why the online porn business is in such a risk for kids, is that there's entire categories of porn called barely legal, where the girls who ostensibly are 18 or older, I think they have to prove that somehow, dress up like they're not, and dress up like they're in junior high or maybe even younger, having a lollipop and dressed in a very childish outfit. There's lots of online pressure and access to resources that suggest this is just another sexual fantasy that needs to be carried out. And so we've lost our true moral north in matters of sexual ethics. The society is reeling from it, and we're seeing children being victimized as a result.
Oh, it's like quite nauseating, to say the least. Back in 2024, when this was going on, St. Xavier High School President Tim Riley released a statement. And the statement said, "We appreciate the unwavering commitment of our faculty, staff, and administration to the safety, well-being, and dignity of every student entrusted to our care. We believe this case to be an isolated incident. However, if any St. Xavier employee has failed you or someone you know in this regard, we strongly urge you to contact the Springfield Township Police Department, Child Protective Services, or reach out to either President Tim Riley or Principal Dan Lynch, or by phone," and all of those numbers were listed. "At this time, we respectfully ask for continued prayers for the well-being of our students, their families, our entire staff, and for all individuals impacted by abuse. We remain committed to providing a safe, supportive, and nurturing environment for our entire St. Xavier community." Mark, I ask this question every time. Is the school in trouble? Do they need to make a change? Or is this one of those cases, how do you predict something like this? 18-year veteran, she does something like this. How do you know?
Yeah. As I told you, my prosecution endeavor is a part-time one. And as part of my other practice, I often defend school districts when they're sued. never in the same cases, of course, that I prosecute, nowhere close. But my experience has been most schools want to get it right. Most people achieve. My mother was a principal her whole career. It's one of the proudest things that I have to say about her. She was an outstanding principal, taking care of little kids, and that was her life's joy. And so when this does happen, and I've sat with superintendents and board members and talked about these sexual offenses, they're mortified. They want to keep kids protected. I've never heard a bad thing about St. X and its protection of its students. Now, I'm not from Cincinnati. I live in the Columbus area, and so I'm not tied into that network, but I know lots of alums of St. X. I've never heard a word about this. It sounds like it probably was an isolated incident. Having said that, I would not be surprised at all if this school were sued in a civil case for negligent supervision or for creating an environment where there weren't enough safeguards to protect this boy. And as you know, and your viewers might know, 99% of civil cases get settled out of court. So if they get sued, it's likely there would be some insurance payout from the school to the student. And this is not a public school, so there are no public records. That settlement would likely be confidential.
Mark Weaver, thanks so much for coming on. Thank you so much for breaking down every single detail of this case. And more importantly, thank you so much for the work that you do and have done. It is very well needed and appreciated.
Sidebar is doing good work by bringing the public more details about this. So thanks, as always, for your invitation.
Indiana teacher Brittany Fortenberry is looking at decades behind bars and mushrooms, paid them for explicit photos, and forced them into wildly disturbing sex acts. This really sinister case just continues to get darker. I'm going to break down the latest charges, newest details from a recent court hearing. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. We are back once again with even more updates in the escalating case against Brittany Fortenberry, an Indiana teacher accused of molesting children and participating in horrifying and heinous sexual misconduct. We cover a lot of these cases involving teachers accused of sexually abusing minors or engaging in inappropriate conversations or communications with them. But this case, honestly, there is, wow, nothing quite like it. And I got to warn you that some of what we're about to hear, if you haven't heard it before, very, very difficult to listen to. So you have this former substitute teacher in Indiana's Morgan County now facing a staggering 29 felony charges. And this after 5 new alleged victims came forward with harrowing accounts of abuse, according to court documents that were obtained by Law and Crime. Now, Fortenberry appeared in court last week for an arraignment on these additional charges. And we're going to get to what came out of that in a moment. But if you haven't been following this case, I'll update you. So in a nutshell, Brittany Fortenberry is accused of molesting 10 minor boys, some as young as 13 years old, when they were students at the schools that she worked at before resigning. The 29 felony charges stem from allegations that 1, Fortenberry drugged teenage boys with mushrooms, marijuana, and alcohol before assaulting them. 2, that she paid minors between $100 and $800 for explicit photos of their genitals. 3, that she forced group sex sessions where victims were made to wear scream masks from the horror movie franchise. And 4, that she even threatened to harm herself if victims reported her, saying, "Just let it happen." These are the allegations. Now, Fortenberry was charged back in November of 2024, then again in February 2025, and again with these most recent charges. And these come from allegations from 5 additional alleged victims who came forward recently. And following those claims, prosecutors filed a motion to tack on 24 felony counts. And what are the changes? What are we talking about? Oh, only 10 counts of sexual misconduct with a minor, including 1 count committed by a person at least 21 years old and another committed with a minor under 16 by a person at least 21 years old. 6 counts of dissemination of harmful matter to minors. 5 counts of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. 1 count of performing sexual conduct in the presence of a minor. 5 counts of child molestation where defendant is at least 21 years old. 1 count of child molestation, fondling or touching with a child under 14. Everybody, this is a Law and Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and not ready to stand up for the families? The visit to give you a sense of this carries a 20 to 40 year if she's convicted. So think about what this 31-year-old woman could be facing if convicted across the board and the judge decides to run the sentences consecutively, one after the other, or even if she gets the max. Now, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but going back to this hearing, Fortenberry, as I mentioned, appeared in court last week. And while there were no cameras that were allowed in the courtroom, we do have a bit of information from the docket as to what came out of this. So according to the clerk's notes, Fortenberry waived the formal reading of the new charges and entered a not guilty plea. New bond was set for her at $150,000 in property surety. This means that the court is going to use Fortenberry's property as collateral in securing her release. An additional cash bond amount of $10,000 was also implemented. And lastly, and this is kind of interesting, both sides seem to agree to dismiss the case. Now, I don't mean to have the case thrown out, to have the charges just completely thrown out and that's it. No, rather to refile this as a level 1 felony case. And this means that prosecutors wish to take the existing charges and recharge them seemingly at the highest severity level under Indiana law. And we're going to talk more about what this means a little bit later on because we're going to bring on Indiana trial attorney Ashley Hadler, who's been on with us as we talk about this case at every stage of development. By the way, speaking of developments, we got a few more that we want to talk about. So on March 26th, the Wagner Reese law firm filed a tort claim, essentially a precursor to an official lawsuit, against the Metropolitan School District in Martinsville, alleging that that district failed to protect its students from Fortenberry's alleged abuse. The claim, filed on behalf of David Doe, a minor victim, seeks $700,000 per sexual assault and accuses the district of a number of things, including ignoring red flags about Fortenberry's behavior, failing to conduct the proper investigation background checks, though the school district does claim they did do it, and also delaying reporting abuse to authorities. And one of the partners in this firm, attorney Jason Reese, stated, like all parents in the community, the boy's family entrusted the school district to protect their son. The family is shocked that something like this could happen. Our preliminary investigation suggests that the school district's administrators knew about inappropriate behavior by Ms. Fortenberry, but still chose to hire her. When her abuse became known to the district, school officials neglected to timely report the abuse to proper authorities, terminate her employment, and alert parents. Now, the school district responded to this and refuted these claims, saying the district is fully cooperating with law enforcement and remains committed to a safe learning environment for students. The individual in question was hired by the MSD of Martinsville on October 24th, 2023, and resigned on January 9th, 2024. The resignation was not related to allegations of sexual misconduct. The MSD of Martinsville conducts a full criminal background check as part of the standard hiring process for all employees. The background check for this former employee reported no criminal activity. The safety of students is the number one priority. The MSD of Martinsville encourages students and families to report concerns through the district's Stop It anonymous reporting system. The district has no further comments. And by the way, speaking of people who allegedly knew what was going on, we have more information about Brittany's husband, Nicholas Fortenberry. And if you recall, he was also arrested and charged with intimidation and failure to report a crime. So prosecutors are essentially alleging that not only did he basically know what was happening, but he decided to not do anything about it and even allegedly threatened an alleged victim for coming forward. We talked a bit about Nicholas Fortenberry in a previous episode of Sidebar, but a newly released transcript from a probable cause hearing is giving us a frightening perspective into his alleged involvement in all this. So on March 6th, an investigating officer testified in court on the allegations, and the claims he brought forth are quite egregious. He testified that Nicholas came up in his investigation because one of these alleged victims mentioned a horrifying encounter that he allegedly had with him regarding what was supposedly going on between this minor child and his wife, Brittany. The officer's testimony reads, Nick came up because victim number 2 disclosed that he was with Brittany and another unknown child. They had went to do some grocery shopping. When they returned to the residence, victim 2 and another unknown child, and then Brittany, Nick, had arrived home from work. When he arrived home from work, he had a side conversation with Brittany, and then Nick confronted victim number 2 and told victim number 2 that if you don't stop what you're doing with my wife, then I'm going to kill you in front of your family. He then went on to say that do not continue to do what you're doing with my wife until you turn 16. And mind you, this child was 13 at the time this supposedly happened. Now, as for Nicholas, he posted a $600 bond. There's a jury trial in the books for him in July. We'll get a little bit more into the details on Nicholas Fortenberry in a minute, but just for some context around this alleged victim, this is a child who reportedly told police that Brittany spent hundreds of dollars on him in a mall, that she sent him nudes and videos of herself having sex with other men, and probably the most horrifying, he claimed that she at the same time, group sex, where they had to wear scream masks. Yes, from the horror movie. You heard that correctly. Now, by the way, this investigation into all this alleged disgusting conduct began back in August when 2 students reported that their former teacher, Brittany Fortenberry, had sent them inappropriate videos of sex toys, a stripper pole, and even nude pictures. This all happened according to the students over the messaging app Snapchat or through Instagram. So then you go to August 23rd, and Fortenberry reportedly resigned from her position from the MSD, the Metropolitan School District of Martinsville, although again, as we mentioned earlier, the district claims her resignation was unrelated to these allegations. But then just 3 months later, in November, she was charged with 2 counts of dissemination of harmful matter to minors and 2 counts of harassment using a computer network or electronic communication. And to kind of give you a snippet of what we're dealing with here, the investigating officer, Patrick Williams, interviewed 2 alleged minor victims back in September. And one of them told the officer, reportedly, that Fortenberry began following him on Instagram and sending him normal messages, but then things became highly disturbing. Here's what that minor had to say about the alleged communications with Fortenberry, and this apparently happened inside a classroom. Quote, alleged minor victim said that she was showing him a picture of something and thought it was her home gym. Alleged minor victim said that she then sits her phone down, making it a point so he could see it, and her photo gallery was open with photos of her completely naked. And on a different occasion, quote, alleged minor victim said that she sent him a picture of her room, and in the picture was a stripper pole. Alleged minor victim talked about her telling him that after she left Martinsville that she was a stripper, how she had an OnlyFans page, and she did exclusive stuff on her Snapchat stories. Yeah, and that's not even the worst of this. And it kind of gives you an idea of how inappropriate this is if true. And then you fast forward to December now, where a woman actually walked into the Morgan County prosecutor's office and said her grandson told her that he was involved in an inappropriate sexual relationship with Brittany Fortenberry. The officer spoke to this child and asked him about why he was coming forward. And this is what that child had to say. Quote, alleged victim said he's there because he doesn't want Brittany Fortenberry to molest more kids. Alleged victim said that some of the victims are considering talking about what happened, and there's others that don't want to talk about it. And this child was right. More alleged victims apparently came forward, many more. And before they did, Fortenberry was charged with 3 counts of sexual misconduct with a minor, another count of disseminating harmful matter to minors, and 1 count of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And remember, this is before 5 additional minors came forward and dozens of new charges were filed. So regarding those 5 alleged victims, they came forward recently, and what they told the investigating officer was horrifying. We did a deep dive into those claims in a separate episode if you want to check it out, but here's the gist of how truly disgusting these allegations are. One alleged victim claimed that Fortenberry sent him nude photos of herself using sex toys. Another claimed that she pleasured herself to his school photos and sent him videos of herself performing sex acts with his boxers. And another even claimed that he was drugged by Fortenberry before she engaged in sexual misconduct with him. But maybe by far the most disturbing claim that was made in the affidavit comes from the boy that we mentioned earlier, who described essentially that he was first groomed by Fortenberry, who says that she purchased hundreds of dollars worth of clothing and shoes for him when they were at a mall together, only to take him back to her house along with friends and seemingly pressure him into doing something that's incomprehensible. According to the affidavit, alleged victim said that Brittany gave them shrooms. Alleged victim said that Brittany turned on a movie, and about 30 minutes into the movie, Brittany asked one of his friends if they wanted to gangbang her. Alleged victim continued saying his friend said sure. Alleged victim said that Brittany had one condition for them to have the gangbang with her, and that was that they had to wear a scream mask. Yeah, the scream mask. Insane. Now, while we're mentioning the allegations against Fortenberry, I do want to circle back to Nicholas again, the husband, because as we mentioned earlier, rather than separating immediately upon finding out what was going on or maybe turning her in, Nicholas Fortenberry instead allegedly not only knew about this behavior, but he also even allegedly threatened some of the minors. According to the affidavit filed last month, alleged victim also mentioned that Brittany had shared that if any of this came out, that she would kill herself. Alleged victim said Brittany told him that if anyone found out, that Nick would slaughter him in front of his family. Alleged victim said about a couple weeks after Brittany told him this, that Nick made the threat to him. And of course, that alleged threat from Nicholas is the one that we documented in the transcript. And there's even another claim in that affidavit that Nicholas knew what was going on. Another alleged victim told the investigating officer, quote, alleged victim said he was pretty certain that Brittany's husband, Nick, knew what was going on. Alleged victim said that they weren't able to come over to the house for a while because they think Nick found out what was going on. By the way, that's kind of an interesting detail because in the end, Nicholas actually filed for divorce from Brittany on February 25th, though it's unclear if that had anything to do with the allegations. But according to the divorce filing, the two were married back in 2020, separated on February 21st, and then Nicholas served Brittany the divorce papers 4 days after that separation. Okay, so now I want to bring on Ashley Hadler, trial attorney, focuses on specifically survivors of sexual abuse in these kinds of cases. Ashley, thanks so much for taking the time to talk about this. So what we have with 29 felony charges spanning multiple victims, how do prosecutors even approach a case like this strategically? You know, there's one hand you might be saying it's a strength for prosecutors to have so many different charges and multiple allegations. But I actually was talking about this the other day, that if you have a weakness, you know, so many charges, if you have a weakness in one of those claims or one of those alleged victims, could it taint the whole case? So how do prosecutors approach this? Do you sense this as just a fully strong case, or could there be problems with it?
That's a great question. I think that you're absolutely right that one piece of evidence that is missing, or if one of the witnesses does not have a clean story that could inject any doubt into the question that the jury will ultimately face, it could be a problem. So I think that the prosecutors here are probably focused on what is the strongest, cleanest evidence that they have, and really vetting that evidence to decide which charges they will ultimately continue with, or which witnesses or charges may ultimately be dropped.
Do you think that it's the digital evidence, right? The Snapchat, the Instagram messages, that is going to be the hardest? Maybe let me put it this way, the strongest evidence for the prosecution. You know, there's one thing to have the accounts of these minors, right? But the other idea is the documentary evidence, the digital evidence that becomes, in my opinion, quite quite hard to argue against, no?
Absolutely. Digital evidence, if available, is going to be huge. If people whose stories are consistent with one another, and we have other evidence that could put Brittany at certain locations at certain times, whether that be receipts or neighborhood cameras or Ring doorbell cameras, any footage that may have been taken in the home, any evidence that could be gathered from any personal devices in the home that we haven't learned about yet. So I think there are a number of options for other pieces of evidence that we haven't learned about at this time.
How does the defense, I mean, imagine they have to challenge the credibility of these minor alleged victims, right? And how do you do that? That seems like a very, very tricky line of questioning, because you don't want to look like you're beating them up. You don't want to come off overly aggressive, but you do have to challenge their credibility, right? And how do you do that? I talk about this a lot in cases where you have adult survivors of sexual abuse and rape who go forward and then ultimately at a trial are being questioned by defense attorneys. This is a whole other element. How to defend victims?
Yeah, I think it is something that typically they approach very delicately. Personally, I can't put myself in that position. I represent survivors, so it's not something that I could ever personally do. But the attorneys that I have seen do it will take a number of tactics and style depending on the age of the witness, what the witness's story is. And here, when you're dealing with children, it is always very delicate. They will try to warm up to them and just inject the doubt that the child's memory may be lacking in some way, or that they have some incentive to testify the way that they're testifying, just calling it into question a bit, but not just outright attacking it like they may do with an older witness or victim.
Yeah, it's tricky. I wanted to ask you about this. The prosecution's intent to refile charges in this case is a level 1 felony. Can you explain to us the process for this and why this happened? What does it mean?
I think that at the time the charges were initially filed, they did not have full information. And since those charges, they have received more evidence and testimony that could convert those to a higher level. And so that's what we're seeing now, that they are continuously amending, adding counts. And that's something that we will see until the time that the case is either resolved through a plea agreement or it goes to trial.
And talk about the counts. I mean, if she goes to trial and she's convicted of all the counts, I mentioned this before, couldn't she realistically face consecutive sentences? You know, you're talking about somebody 31, even if you think about the maximum there, and it's not consecutive and it's all concurrent, you could be looking at potentially her not getting out until her 70s. But do you think there's a strong likelihood that she could get consecutive sentences for this and theoretically spend the rest of her life in prison? How does it work?
I do. I think that this is something that's so egregious that the judge will consider all of that at the time of sentencing. He is going to hear a lot of information from victims and parents and others in the community who have been affected by this. And I think it's something that, looking at the full circumstances and considering any mitigating facts that she may seek to have considered, this is something that they will be looking to extend for as long as possible, just for the protection of any potential future victims, as well as a very low likelihood potentially of rehabilitation here.
We talk about the graphic nature of these allegations. We talk about what it would be like for these minor victims or alleged victims to come forward and testify about what happened to them. It feels to me there might be an incentive on the part of the prosecutors to work out a deal here with Brittany Fortenberry, so this doesn't go to trial. So you don't have to expose a jury to all of this. So you don't have to have these alleged minor victims take the stand and recount these experiences. Do you think a deal could be worked out? And what would a deal look like? Because I can't imagine that it wouldn't include significant prison time, no?
I think that there is definitely the potential of that here. Certainly, Ms. Fortenberry has a lot to gain from a plea deal if the prosecutor would accept one. And I think that any deal is absolutely going to include an agreement to register as a lifetime sex offender. I think that is a no-brainer in this situation. That's something that should continue to follow her, especially given her history of seeking to work with kids, work in the school system. That's something that should remain a flag on her history moving forward. And a significant amount of jail time, whether that means until she's age 70 or later, I'm not sure, but I do think that we will see a sentence of at least 10 years, if not more.
And with that, do you know if that might include parole, or is that something that's not worked out in that kind of deal?
With that deal, that would be included. It would be contemplated that for an amount of time after she is incarcerated, that she would continue to follow with probation and meet certain parameters to show that she's staying in line with the guidelines that the court set for her.
And now let's also talk about Nicholas, right? So, I got to tell you, I cover a lot of these kinds of cases, unfortunately. And you don't see the significant other, the spouse, being any way connected to the charges. We got Nicholas here, who's being charged with essentially intimidating and threatening one of the alleged minor victims. Were you surprised at what he's being charged with? And if this is true, how come not charged with something more serious in the sense of, an accomplice liability, something like he was more connected to the allegations here? Or is it, I'm not sure. I leave it to you about what do you make of the charges he's facing? And could he face an additional charge that he was more connected or complicit with what was the allegations are here?
Definitely. I would not be surprised to see additional charges. The prosecutor was seeking probable cause to file the charges, is that they wanted to have the charges filed as soon as possible. They wanted to get Nicholas involved. He was flee or to not, and based on the testimony of the witness, intimidation and the failure to report child abuse were the most logical and available charges to press. But certainly, I would not be surprised if we learn additional details about the extent of his knowledge and involvement. And if so, then that could lead to additional charges.
Or is he being charged with this right now because they may want to work out a deal with him to testify against, Brittany? I reported earlier because he could testify against her, but their conversations would be privileged, right? Then the spousal privilege. How should I be thinking about this? How should we be thinking about this?
Yeah, I think that even though the divorce has been filed, the important thing to remember is that the spousal privilege does cover all of the communication. He would have incentive to do that. It's not a typical situation where if you have a conspiring person, that they are going to have that incentive to throw the other person under the bus to save themselves. I don't think that we see that as much here. And we have to remember that we are dealing with two people who are still presumably planning to co-parent a small child or children together. And so he has kind of competing interests in that regard related to the mother of his child.
Ashley, I want to also ask you about this tort claim. The tort claim against the school district. You didn't do enough to report. You didn't do the proper investigation into Brittany Fortenberry. Are there legs to this?
One of the first things that came to mind for me is what were the school systems thinking and doing at the time of hire of this woman, as well as continuing to supervise her during her employment. From what we know now, there was a lot of information that was available to them and probably known to them that should have raised some major red flags that, if these had acted differently, could have prevented some of the suffering abuse.
But the background check part, I do in her before you hired her. I'm always struggling with that because hindsight's 2020. How could a proper, even let's assume they did a full background check, predicted anything?
Hear it from if a person does not have a criminal history. In Indiana, part of the background check that they're doing is searching for any history of Department of Child Services complaints that were made against this person and looking to see if any of those had been substantiated. And we know, at least with Brittany, that there had been prior DCS involvement. I don't believe it is a matter of public knowledge whether or not that was substantiated, but if it were, that would have precluded her from being hired.
Interesting. Ashley Hadler, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. It's quite the story, to say the least, and we're going to continue to follow it here on Sidebar.
Absolutely.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber.
You, Christina? Yes. Okay, Christina, do me a favor. Can you step out of the car for me?
That's teacher Christina Mello. The day she was arrested and charged with having sex with a student.
Can't even get ideas.
At the moment, I could tell you more.
I have the very latest on her case. Her appearance is eye to eye. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Jeanette Levy. Christina Formella is accused of serious crimes involving one of her former students and an allegation that she had sex with him in her classroom when she was tutoring him before school. Prosecutors say the assault happened at South Downers Grove High School outside of Chicago in December of 2023. A petition for Formella's detention, which was denied, stated, according to the teen, he and defendant had developed feelings for each other. The teen said that one morning in December 2023, before school, he had met up with defendant in her classroom. The teen said that defendant had closed her door, which automatically locked, that they had started kissing, that he had grabbed her butt and she had grabbed his private parts over the clothes, that she had removed his pants and underwear, that they had removed her leggings, and that they had engaged in sexual intercourse while standing up. Now, the student's mother went to police in March after she started setting up a new iPhone for him, and police said she discovered text messages between her son and an unknown number. The woman's son wrote in one of the texts, "I love you so, so much, Mama." The unknown number texted back, "I love you so much, baby," even though this morning was short, it was perfect. The teen messaged back, "I know, baby, it was perfect, so perfect." The unknown number then texted, "I love having sex with you." The teen responded, "I know, baby, I love it so much. It feels so good. It's so passionate. It's so intimate. It is so perfect." Now, the mother had to be livid when she read these text messages, a teacher and her son telling each other that they love each other and talking about having sex in a classroom. This led police to pick up Formella on March 16th.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
Officer Guzman with Downers Grove. Do you have your license on you?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna explain. I'm sure you're confused. I'll explain it to you. You're Christina?
Yes.
Okay, Christina, do me a favor. Can you step out of the car for me? I know you're confused. I'll explain everything to you. You don't have anything on you? You can just grab whatever you need.
Whatever I need.
Yeah, whatever you need. Like your phone, your purse, your phone, grab it.
Is she going somewhere? Or?
Yeah, we're gonna explain everything to you guys. Go ahead and grab it up. We're not going anywhere right now. Of course, yeah.
I don't understand what's going on here.
I get it, yeah. You can go grab your things.
Can you come with me?
Yes. You stay there for right now, so just stay there, but yes, you can. But come on back here.
Should I shut the car off?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Was off. Okay. Let's right back over here. So, we do have an investigation going on. We have to talk to you about it at the police department, okay? So, we're going to explain everything to you there. It's not my investigation. I don't know the full details. We do have to bring you there, though, okay? So, I do have to put you in handcuffs and bring you to the police department. Just a Downers Grove. Yes, unfortunately.
I'm like, ready to go with you.
I get it, yeah.
Day, are they gonna give us
Do me
something?
a favor, just take this off.
Now, Formella was with her husband. It was a Sunday, and she was clearly shocked.
Can I ask you what?
Of course, yeah. It's not like I said, it's not my investigation. Obviously, we're here for a reason. So go ahead and turn around for me. So right now you're being detained, and there is a detective that needs to talk to you at the police department. So we'll let your husband know. He can just come to the police department as well if he wants to wait for you there.
I'm like.
I get it. You have a lot of questions.
So scared.
Yeah, everything's okay. We just need to talk to you at the police department. That's all. Nothing else on your pocket right now. Anything else?
Just my phone.
Just your phone.
Here.
Okay. Okay. All right, we're gonna sit in the back of this car on the other side. Once you get to the police department, you'll talk to the detective and he'll explain everything to you.
But you can't even give me like an idea
At the moment,
of what this is about.
Other than that, it's an investigation. That's all I can really tell you right now. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you more.
Is he coming with me?
We'll let him know right now.
Did you know that high blood pressure is the #1 risk factor for mortality? 1 in 2 adults have it, and many don't even realize they're at risk. It's a silent killer lurking unnoticed until it's too late. Great tasting, super, and thousands of people. South. Crime Fix and use code Crime Police Department.
Is he coming with me?
We'll let him know right now.
Excuse me, is my husband coming with?
Yes, yeah, he's taking his phone number down. We're staying in touch with him. We're just going to Downers Grove, the 10 minutes away.
No, I know, but I really would prefer that my husband's with me.
Of course.
Good looking. The officer wrote in a court document that Formella denied having sex with the student, but in the same breath said that the relationship was wrong and she couldn't stop it because she cared too much about him. The petition for detention states, when confronted with the text messages found on the student's phone, she claimed that one day the student had grabbed her phone unattended, had entered her passcode, which he allegedly knew because he had seen her type it into her phone one day, had sent the message to his phone, had then deleted the message from her phone, and had saved it to his phone as blackmail. According to defendants, she had no idea these text messages even existed. So according to police, Formella claimed the student had created the text messages that I read to you earlier. Police also said they found a memoir updated the morning of her arrest in the notes section of her phone, and that it was about the student, and that she claimed these were an outlet for her anxiety brought on by the student. An officer said Formella wrote, "I'm not upset, I'm not mad, I'm not any of that, I've just lost interest. I went back and screenshotted every single time that I said we should break up until after the wedding and after you graduated. And every single effing time you came back and convinced me it would be fine. I initiated every single breakup, only for you to end things, saying you couldn't get over it. You ruined us. I warned you we should have never started dating a long effing time ago, and you gaslit me and convinced me it was fine every single time because that's who you are. We will never, ever be together again. I'm not a second choice. I'm the best thing you'll ever have, even with all of my mistakes. You, once again, waited and strung me along until it was convenient for you. It broke me last time. This time it changed me. I'm not sad. I'm F-word mad that I let a 16-year-old F-word with me like that, and I made a promise to myself that I never will let any guy F-word with me like that again." Now, police said there was a section in Formella's notes entitled Manifestations that read, "The teen is going to reach out to me soon and try to fix things between us. In the meantime, I'm going to live my best life knowing he's not the person I thought he was and that he is beneath me." Police said they found another note in Formella's phone from November of 2024 that read, "The teen and I will connect again soon in a positive way. We will both get the closure we need in order to move on in a healthy way. We will be able to be a part of each other's lives forever. We will be in each other's lives forever. We will be able to love each other while also living our own lives." Detectives said Christina Formella had referred to the boy as her stalker and that her husband knew about this, but when they asked her husband about him, he only knew about the teen as a soccer player. Now, on March 16th, the questioning by detectives ended as Formella was taken to jail.
I'm just gonna put your seatbelt on. Unless you're able to leave it down there. Sure, you don't want a tissue or something?
I feel like I'm gonna throw up.
A bag?
Yes, please.
All right. Shauna, can you grab which bag out of there? Hey, can you get like a bag just in case she gets nauseous? Yeah. I don't know. Do we have any of those MSS bags like going around the block? I figure there's something better than nothing.
Now, the case has gotten a lot of attention locally in DuPage County and nationally. Here's reporter Suzanne Sarkowskis from dailyherald.com.
It has drawn quite the attention from the public in the Downers Grove area. Hundreds of comments on social media. It's been one of our highest trending stories on the Daily Herald website. So people are interested. I know that the Daily Mail has done some court coverage out here in the past, but it's pretty rare. And that, pretty rare for People to show up out here, People magazine. So I don't know how they even noticed it, and why they're paying attention. But yeah, there's high interest.
Christina Formella appeared in court on Monday, and her lawyer and her husband were with her.
It was a fairly brief hearing, about 6 minutes in total. It's a large courtroom. She had 2 attorneys with her today. I believe she may have 3 overall. She was arraigned on the charges. The indictment, the grand jury indicted her on, read the charges and explained them to her and gave the sentencing possibilities, the prosecutor gave the sentencing possibilities. She pleaded not guilty, and then they scheduled a court date for June, where they may set a trial date and discuss setting a trial date. She was dressed, I would say, very professionally. She's a very petite woman, and that was about it. The rest of the hearing was a discussion of the upcoming date regarding whether we can have cameras in the courtroom.
Now, in Illinois, the prosecution, defense, and the judge have to sign off for cameras to be allowed in a court proceeding, and Formella's lawyers are objecting to the Daily Mail's request to shoot the proceedings and share the footage with other media outlets. Formella's lawyer wrote, "The media request here is untimely. Defendant's court appearance on April 14, 2025 was scheduled on March 17, 2025. Daily Mail Online provided the media coordinator with notice on April 9, 2025, and the defendant did not receive notice of the same until April 10, 2025. Daily Mail Online has provided no good cause for its failure to timely notify the media coordinator, the court, and the parties of its request for extended media coverage. Now, her lawyers continued. Since defendant's arrest, she, her family, and neighbors have been repeatedly harassed by tabloid media reporters seeking to sensationalize this case. Local law enforcement has been called numerous times, and the defense isn't the only side objecting to cameras in the courtroom.
The prosecution feels that way too. And then the defense feels, besides that, they also feel that, the victim has rights not to have a camera in the courtroom. And even if it's at a point where they're not testifying yet, they could be in the audience and they say, they don't want pictures taken of the victim. So, but yeah, the sensational
not want cameras in the courtroom. Public attention, both in traditional media as well as social media, some of which have sensationalized the allegations in this case. The victim and his family have already suffered substantial embarrassment by the filing of the charges in this case. Despite the use of the victim's initials in the pleadings in this case, based on the facts of this case that are of public record, the victim is easily identifiable by those familiar with him. Any video and photographs of the parties in this case during court proceedings will presumably be disseminated to the public. Upon said dissemination, these videos and photographs will undoubtedly make its way to other media outlets whose main interest is to appeal to the salacious appetite of a certain segment of the population who has a bizarre fascination with the facts of this case. The defense also discussed social media and its objection to having cameras in the courtroom. Photographs of the defendant, body-worn camera recordings, pleadings, and law enforcement reports have appeared on TikTok, Instagram, X, and other social media platforms. Posts and comments have numbered in the thousands. The presence of a photojournalist at the arraignment will create a heightened media spectacle that could prejudice potential jurors and the public against the defendant. And again, Christina Formella has pleaded not guilty to these charges. I want to turn now to somebody who has prosecuted teachers in the past and a prosecutor. So, Mark, reaction to the allegations in this case. We have a kind of a young teacher, but she's a teacher nonetheless, accused of having a sexual relationship with a student who was 15 at the time. Now he's a little older. But it sounds like, according to what's in her phone, according to what they wrote in the court documents, she possibly still has feelings for him and has a hard time, according to what they've written, letting go.
There's remarkable evidence in this case. Typically, when I'm prosecuting a sex offender, it's a he said, she said thing. Rarely is such good documentary evidence available in her own phone. The excuses she's offered for why she acknowledges this inappropriate and illegal relationship in her phone are borderline laughable. I think jurors might be offended at it. I can't imagine this is going to go to a trial. I think she's going to be pleading guilty and hoping to maybe just limit her prison sentence to 4 or 5 years.
It seems like a lot of times these female teachers, though, and she's pleaded not guilty. She has pleaded not guilty in court. That happened this week. So she's, at this point in the game, her attorney will get the discovery. He will go through it. He'll determine, what he thinks the best course of action in this case should be. But she claimed, according to the police, that the student got into her phone, somehow knew her passcode and sent these texts and then wanted to keep them as blackmail. She called him, apparently referred to him as, or painted him as a stalker or something to that effect. The husband had no idea who he was other than a soccer player, had no idea about this so-called stalking. I mean, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah. The things she wrote in her phone actually correspond with and supports this young boy's account of what happened. So we have his account. We have her own notes suggesting that she was in an inappropriate sexual relationship. And yeah, she's a younger teacher. And at one point she said, because she thinks she's good looking, therefore everyone's picking on her. I don't imagine juries would like that. They're not going to like the fact that this happened. They're not going to like her excuses. They're not going to like this notion of I'm the pretty girl, so everybody picks on me. This is a tough case for someone to defend. The only way I could see the defense winning a not guilty verdict would be some mistake in the state's case. And I imagine prosecutors are going to handle this very carefully if for no other reason it's become a very high profile case.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned 4 or 5 years in prison. You've prosecuted cases where you've sent people to prison for sex crimes, male and female teachers, coaches, things like that. We've seen some other cases, though, where female teachers have gotten probation. Not that probation is a walk in the park, but we've seen a lot of cases where these female teachers have gotten like years on probation and not jail time. What do you make of that?
It's wrong. The last female teacher / coach who I prosecuted is doing 10 years in prison for having sex with multiple boys, including one as young as 13 years old. And in my sentencing memo that I filed with the court before the sentencing hearing, I laid out not just the law, but the problems in our culture with this notion that somehow it's a big win for a teenage boy to have sex with an older female teacher. I pointed to the movies and the songs and the television shows that lionize this notion that it's somehow a great thing for a 14 or 15 or 16-year-old boy to have sex with this female teacher. It's wrong. It's child abuse and it ought to be sentenced the exact same way. And we as a culture should look just as harshly at young female teachers who have sex with students as we would if it were a male teacher.
So put a defense attorney hat on now. You're going to go through all of the discovery materials, assuming you're going to look at whether or not the phone was seized lawfully, her phone. She may have turned it over. It may have been a consent search, something like that. We don't know at this point in time. You're going to look at all of that stuff. As a defense attorney, do you go to the state and make an offer? I mean, how does that work?
I've not been a defense attorney, but I've worked with dozens and dozens of them over the years as a prosecutor. And they have a kind of a choice at the outset. Go in really hard charging, file motions to suppress against everything used against her, file every possible motion to try to undermine the state's case, which frankly aggravates prosecutors. I'm less likely to want to work out a plea agreement if a defense lawyer is being unreasonable in their pretrial filings. And so that's one path. The other path is to go to them hat in hand and say, listen, let's work something out. I'm sure we can make this work. That's what I mentioned earlier is her best shot is to go and try to get a very short prison sentence because she could do 10 or 15 years depending on how many instances there were beyond the one instance where allegedly they had sex in the classroom.
Now, this is Illinois, different state than you practice in, but, neither side in Illinois, the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense have to kind of all sign off on allowing cameras in the courtroom. The media would like cameras to be in the courtroom for the proceedings, but both the defense and the prosecution are in agreement. They don't want cameras in the courtroom. Apparently the victim is, they're embarrassed, he and his family. The defense doesn't want cameras in the courtroom. Both sides say the case has been sensationalized by some media. What is your response to that?
I taught a law school class at Ohio State for many years, and one of the topics I taught was cameras in court. And there's good arguments on both sides. Some people say we shouldn't have a media circus, the way the O.J. Simpson trial became one. Others say this is transparency, and most people can't get down to the courthouse to watch what's happening in their system. I tend to lean more towards the latter. I think there is a transparency. I prosecuted a serial killer, and the entire trial was on television. It was all on crime, and that allowed people who cared about that case to follow it without having to be in the courtroom every day, which is a burden for many people. So I tend to err on the side of allowing cameras in court, but we also have to have a fair trial. I do think there's a way to balance both interests.
Interesting. Well, we will see how it works out. Illinois is tricky when it comes to cameras, so we'll see what happens. But she will be back in court in June for another proceeding, but the camera issue will be taken up later this week. But Mark, you said, when you view what we've seen so far in the court documents, you find the evidence in this case to be
evidence that often that I have, and I'm able to prove my case beyond a reasonable doubt when it's a he said, she said. I'll take that burden, but I'd much rather have this documentary evidence. Nothing what she's saying makes sense. It really is the defense of a child who's been caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and it's obvious what they're doing. And so it's not been a smart defense so far. We'll see whether they have something to say. They don't have any burden in court, of course, but we'll see if they have a different theory going forward.
Yeah, it's pretty early in the case so far. And when they picked her up, she did talk to the police. So there's that piece of evidence as well, and they reference that. Mark Weaver.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, all I got for now. Well, actually, I got some more, but I'm reaching my 2-hour time limit, so I'm cutting it off there. See y'all in a couple hours. I think I'm sleepy, but I'm not really sleepy, so I don't know. I'm probably gonna go back live with the tummy thing. I don't know. I'm gonna try to lay down though. To the next episode. We out.
Never been a hoe, I stay on go, so with the business. Nigga talking reckless, shoot this bitch ass with the quickness. Now he bleeding, sorry, begging, asking for forgiveness. Bow, 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 bow. Limp Bizkit. All my niggas wildin', they done labeled us some misfits. Wake up every morning, 2 or 3, 5 in the thick bitch. Oh shit, didn't nobody come to see you old. It's some focus. Shoot 100 shots, no reloaded. Master of the game, you would think I'm into coding. Memphis niggas spit this pippin', mackin' like I'm golden. Ho, with my money, you gon' turn me to the old me. Say hi, first class flight, I'm in the nosebleed. Copy, cooking, whipping, shipping till you count the proceeds. OG, I've been moving back niggas since 03. Low key, niggas hating, but they don't want no beef. State gang, true sippers, bitch, I bet we gon' eat. Get jam, get a lawyer, make it bunny, don't speak. Pour up, oh, I need some more, nigga had a long week. Shout out to my plug, he showed me love, he out in Long Beach, I'm true geek. Walking by myself, but left with 2 freaks. Ooh, we, nothing in they mouth and on they booty. Austin Power swag, yeah, baby, this is groovy. You can call me Money Boy, or you can call me Nudie. Hood niggas, churches, chicken, let me get a 2-piece. Top down, 2-seater, let me feel the 2 breathe. Gotta hold it steady, chopper, kick it back like Bruce Lee. Lately I've been in the zone, I guess I'm in my 2-3. Don't call my phone for nothing less than a QP. Feeling like the Migos, cause my bitch is bad and bougie. All my haters love me, all these bitches, this some groupies. Came a long way, I like to introduce the new me. Standing on business like I'm king or like I'm Drewski. Call me Ron Island, cause I like my love for choosy. When we link, it's a movie. She bustin' like a Uzi. I love the way she do me. I beat it up like Uzi. She dancing just like Suki. Call me Ron Island, cause I love my love for choosy. When we link, it's a movie. She bustin' like a Uzi. I love the way she do me. I beat it up like Uzi. She dancing just like Suki. I never been a hoe, I stay on go, so what the business? Niggas talking reckless, shoot his bitch ass with the quickness. Name pleading, sorry baby, asking for forgiveness. Bow, 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 Limp Bizkit. Never been a hoe, I stay on go, so what the business? Nigga talking reckless, shoot his bitch ass with the quickness. Name pleading, sorry baby, asking for forgiveness. Bow, 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 Limp Bizkit.